Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and I know that I'm a little late, but again, I was really busy this past week and a half, 2 weeks. Again, also wanted to announce, I already made an announcement on the community page, but I will not be able to live stream today. I want to try to live stream tomorrow as a Monday, but I'm going to keep y'all posted, so I apologize for that. But again, just been really busy. But today, after I finally got some time to really look at this guy, I wanted to talk about how the Washington Commanders are signing star XFL offensive tackle Jaryd Jones-Smith. So I finally got a chance to look at a little bit of what he did in the XFL, take a look at his college tape a little bit as well. I wanted to look at his journey and see how he even got here. And then, of course, we got to break down whether or not he has a good chance of making this roster. And if he does, whose spot is he taking? All of that type of stuff. Maybe try to look at some comps, things like that. So we're going to do a full breakdown of Jaryd Jones-Smith, the guy that the Commanders just signed. And then also, I want to talk about some of the other players that the Commanders are targeting from the XFL as well. We invited 2 of them to our rookie mini camp. And so make sure you be on the lookout for those guys. We're going to talk about those guys as well. But the main part of this video is the focus on Jaryd Jones-Smith and why he actually has a better chance of making this roster than you may even know. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel with the bell next to the subscription button so you get notifications immediately, and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Again, I'm sorry I will not be able to live stream today. I want to plan for live streaming tomorrow as a Monday. We will see, but I will keep y'all updated. Also, be on the lookout for all of the film sessions that I'm working on. Man, I'm excited. I got that access. I got the real access to this real all-22 for a lot of the players that the Commanders selected. Again, we're going to do film sessions for every player that we drafted, and even some undrafted free agents, some of the notable ones, especially that returner from UCLA that has a good chance of making this roster, especially if he can beat out Dax Milne as our starting punt returner. We'll see. But man, make sure you're on the lookout for all of that. Of course, channel members will get the longer versions, no ads and all of that type of stuff. The general public will get like a 5 to 8 minute version. Channel members are going to get the full, unedited, uncut 30-minute to an hour, maybe even more than an hour version, depending on who we're looking at, especially guys like Emmanuel Forbes. So make sure y'all stay tuned. Without further ado, let's get it.
You tell your family you're going to be a commander.
All right, so the Washington Commanders signed XFL offensive tackle Jaryd Jones-Smith on May 16th. And then they released offensive tackle Drew Himmelman. And that's really interesting because they cut one high-ceiling guy for another high-ceiling guy. So that means that they clearly prefer one of the high-ceiling guys over the other. And then the fact that Jaryd Jones-Smith was able to play in the XFL as much as he did and put some tape out there, it definitely helped his case. And then they probably have looked at Drew Himmelman since we've signed him a couple of months ago and been like, nah, we'll definitely take our chances with this guy. Both high-ceiling guys, both boomer bust kind of guys. We're going to get into that. But it's really interesting that they released Drew Himmelman to bring on Jaryd Jones-Smith. That means they are showing strong interest in him because they were talking about Drew Himmelman quite a bit when we signed him. Like he could be the next high-ceiling guy that could be a breakout star. And the fact that they released him to get Jaryd Jones-Smith in here, it shows they like him. And Jaryd Jones-Smith did his thing in the XFL, man. He was awarded all XFL offensive lineman honors. And you can argue he was the best offensive lineman in the entire XFL last year. So I'm not surprised. I mean, even just going back and looking at what he did after we signed him, I'm not gonna sit here and lie and act like I was aware of this guy before we signed him, but after we signed him, going back to look at him, it's like, well, I mean, I'm not surprised he ended up getting picked up. I'm happy we were the team that were gonna give him a chance, because you can definitely argue just based on tape and potential that he was the best offensive lineman in the XFL, and there's a reason that we're giving him this opportunity. I'm really excited, man. When we talk about ceilings, man, 6'7", 320 pounds, it's all there, man. All of the tools that you need, it's there, and I could easily see him latching onto this roster and proving himself worthy of playing, because if there's any defensive line that you would want work against to prove yourself against in the NFL, it's this Commanders defensive line, who is arguably the best in the NFL. And so iron sharpens iron, and with him going against Montez Sweat and Chase Young all day, and even KJ Henry, our recent draft pick, it's only going to make him better. And I mean, he may look pretty bad in the beginning going against those dogs right there, but I think over time, especially throughout training camp, he's going to go out there and prove that he deserves to make this roster. I'm pretty high on him. After going back and really looking at his tape, I'm pretty high on him. I think he does have a solid chance of making this roster. Nothing's guaranteed. I mean, when you're just signed off from the XFL randomly in the middle of May, it's not like your chances of making the roster are very high. But I think he does have a higher chance than a lot of people are giving him credit for. But again, we're going to dive into his weaknesses and strengths. But I just wanted to talk about his path about the NFL first, because he's played for the Texans, 49ers, Ravens, and Raiders before. Well, at least he's been on those teams. Played for is quite a stretch for some of those teams, but he was on those 4 teams at some point before the XFL. So he had his chances in the NFL. He kind of fell through the cracks. That tends to happen with a lot of guys, even though it usually doesn't happen with guys that big and that monstrous of a human being. Typically, somebody's always going to give you a chance. Just like when you're 7 foot tall, even if you're just grocery shopping, somebody's going to walk up to you and be like, hey, man, have you thought about trying the NBA? Can we just get your stamina up and work on some fundamentals, and we can maybe make something work? It's kind of the same thing when you're 6'7", 320 pounds. People are going to be like, man, we could do something with you in football. We got to find something. So it is amazing that somebody that size has kind of gone forgotten over time, because I felt like he looked pretty decent in college and worthy of being picked up and given a real NFL chance, but so far he hasn't made much of the ones that he's gotten so far. But either way, let's go back to his history. He played at Pittsburgh and went undrafted in 2018, and just to let you know, he is 27 years old currently, so we're talking about a high ceiling. But we got to remember, this guy is not like 21, 22, 23. Again, he's been around the NFL. He played for the XFL for an entire season. He's 27 years old, so just keep that in mind. But after being signed as an undrafted free agent to the Houston Texans in 2018, he was waived during the final cuts that summer. Then from there, Jones Smith landed in the Alliance of American Football, AAF, where he spent 2019 with the San Antonio Commanders. Interesting, going from the Commanders from 2019 to the Commanders in 2023. After the AAF suspended operations, because, I mean, he's just been bouncing around, and he'll end up with a league, and then the league gets shut down. Luckily, the XFL stayed up and played an entire season and had an whole championship and things like that for him to be able to show what he could do this past season. But a lot of these alternative leagues don't even make it through an entire season, really don't last long. So another reason why he's falling through the cracks. But he signed with the Miami Dolphins after the AAF suspended operations, where he was waived during final cuts again. So on another NFL roster, and just didn't make the cut before the season started. Then he spent the 2020 season with the Las Vegas Raiders, where he appeared in 3 games, all starts. He was released just before the 2021 season and signed with the Baltimore Ravens practice squad. He would end up playing in 1 game for the Ravens, where he was released during the Baltimore's final round of cuts in the 2022. So basically, other than the XFL, his biggest opportunity to show what he could do so far after college was with the Raiders, where he played in 3 games, started in 3 games, and then he played in 1 game for the Ravens, but he ended up not even making the final roster in 2022. Then in November, Jones Smith was drafted by the XFL's Battlehawks, where he played in every game during the XFL season and earning all XFL honors. So he was arguably the best offensive lineman in the XFL, but according to the XFL, he was at the very least one of the best tackles. He parlayed that success into a contract with the Commanders, only this time it's the Washington Commanders again, because he played for another Commanders back in 2019. And so again, to make room for this guy, the Commanders released Drew Himmelman, who's another high ceiling guy that we were bringing in, hoping that he could be that guy that we can mold and find like a diamond in the rough out of nowhere, turn a guy from virtually who just came out of nowhere and turned him into a star. He had that level of potential, and I like the Drew Himmelman, but I definitely like Jones Smith even more. Jaryd Jones Smith has the same ceiling, if not higher, and comes with a higher floor. Drew Himmelman looked virtually unplayable. Like, if we had to play a game tomorrow, Drew Himmelman is virtually unplayable. Whereas Jaryd Jones Smith, you know, I wouldn't say he would go out there and do a great job, but at least you can respect him out there on the field. Drew Himmelman, I was worried if there were any situation where anytime soon he had to play, I was really worried about him going into the preseason, where I feel like Jaryd Jones Smith could actually play this upcoming preseason and look pretty decent and show a little something. So Jaryd Jones Smith definitely comes with a higher ceiling for sure, and then we can debate ceilings. So he's just a better prospect to pick up and give an opportunity to Drew Himmelman anyway. And also remember, the last time the Washington Commanders signed an XFL player from the St. Louis Battlehawks, it was Taylor Heinicke, and you saw what he did for us. A lot of people didn't give him a chance. A lot of people didn't have a lot of hope behind him. Looked at what he did. And Jaryd Jones Smith, you can argue, has more potential as a tackle than Taylor Heinicke has as a quarterback. But we can see. We'll see. Coming out of the draft, A lot of people felt like his strengths were, I mean, just looking at the NFL.com's breakdown of him, tall with athletic frame and arms that dangle by his side. He has very long arms. That's arguably one of the best traits that he has, man. When it comes to manhandling and mirroring defensive edge rushers off the edge and stuff like that, those arms come in handy, man. That's huge. When you're 6'7", 320 pounds, you better have some long arms, and he has them. He's also able to step inside and wall off defenders in the run game, has some natural ability in pass protection. They also say his slides have adequate weight dispersal, and he's able to absorb speed to power conversions with engaged core. They say he's effective use of arm length, can shut down one-move rushers, does a good job of keeping the jab in rushers' chest. Length allows him to run edge rushers up past the arc, works to keep rushers centered in power zone. Had his share of quality reps against Bradley Chubb, which is very notable in college. The fact that he went against Bradley Chubb and looked pretty good doing it, I'm surprised he even went undrafted. Body control is adequate, and hand placement is likely to be improved in the pros. And so far, from what I've seen, going from his Pittsburgh tape to what he looked like at the XFL, he's still really raw. There's still a slight ball of clay there, but again, he comes with a higher floor than Drew Hillman for a reason, and he definitely has improved with his hand placement. It's not great, it's not perfect, but it's definitely improved. And then his NFL.com breakdown of his weaknesses says, missed 2015 due to a severe knee injury where he tore 3 of his 4 ligaments, and that's big. He lacks extensive starting experience. That's also a thing as well, but he got plenty of it at the XFL. He's a grass pounder with heavy feet. Not a very fluid athlete, whether moving forward or laterally. Will run feet through contact as drive blocker, but doesn't generate much push. Lacks finishing characteristics in run game. Needs to drop pad level lower in run game. Ineffective on the move. Takes bad angles to second level and rarely sticks to those blocks long. Slow to redirect his weight and will have to prove he can handle NFL edge speed and subsequent counters inside. And ultimately, they projected him to go between rounds 4 and 5 the year that he was coming out in 2018. Which is crazy, and he ended up going undrafted. So that was a shocker to a lot of people. Again, if you're just looking at his traits, strengths, and weaknesses, I feel like he should have been drafted as well, maybe like 6th round, but going undrafted is pretty crazy. And then when you go back and look at what he did for Pittsburgh, because again, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I've just been aware of this guy before we signed him. After we signed him, again, I went back and looked at the XFL stuff. I looked at his college stuff a little bit. When you go back and look at his college stuff, there's no surprise that he made it to the XFL with the level of competition that they have, especially, and it's also no surprise that if all he had to do was just improve on a couple of things, why he was arguably the best offensive lineman in the XFL, which again isn't a lot of competition, but it's better than nothing and better than some colleges. So I'm not surprised, like going back and looking at his old stuff, it's like, oh, okay, I can see where, you know, he has all of this potential, had to work on a few things. He improved some of them, not all of them, and the Commanders getting them in their hands. And if the Commanders can get him to work on a few things, he could be something special, man. I mean, this guy has a lot of star potential. I wouldn't put my life savings on it. I'm not just going to sit here and act like we just signed our next starting right tackle. And that's one thing about him too. I definitely feel like he's more of a right tackle than anything else, but the ceiling is definitely there. But he also comes with a floor to where if you want to stash him at the end of the roster, at the bottom of the roster, you may be able to do that. I'm not sure though. After that XFL season, you may not be able to steal him and hide him onto the practice squad. You either just basically accept he's going to be on your roster, your 53 final man roster, or he's probably going to end up getting picked up somewhere else, because what he did for the XFL, not only just production wise, but again, just traits. He fixed a lot of his minor issues that he had coming out of college, a lot of the rawness that he had coming out of college. It looks like he polished it a little bit in the XFL. It's not completely polished. Again, there's still some rawness to his game, a lot of rawness to his game. But the fact that he's improved since we saw him in college, I think that's a big thing right there. That shows that he's getting better and better, and I will take that. I feel like the Commanders coaches are looking like, hey, man, we could take this guy and do something with him. Terrell Wharton, who's still waiting to be announced as our top offensive lines coach. I think they said they're waiting until Josh Harris officially buys the team and takes over. But Terrell Wharton is going from our assistant offensive lines coach to our official offensive lines coach. Pretty sure him and Eric Bieniemy look at this guy and be like, yeah, we could definitely do something with this. We can work with this. So I'm really excited about him. And so again, with his weaknesses and strengths from the NFL.com report from him coming out of the 2018 draft, I would actually take away some of those weaknesses and say that he fixed a couple of them. And ultimately, he is a better player than he was coming out of 2018. Now, what's really interesting, if you want to take a look at comps, is that he's very similar to Cornelius Lucas, man, where you can kind of see him playing left tackle or right tackle for you, but you prefer him at right tackle if possible. And then both are just monstrosities of just huge human beings. Jaryd Jones-Smith is 6'7", 320 pounds. Cornelius Lucas is 6'8", 328 pounds. I mean, the comp is really close right there. And so I'd be really excited if he's just as good as Cornelius Lucas. Now, granted, Cornelius Lucas, maybe they're bringing Jones-Smith to come in here and be his replacement, but I wouldn't be too hasty just yet. I would not be too hasty just yet. I want to see Jones-Smith do some stuff in training camp and preseason to earn my trust enough to where we could cut Cornelius Lucas. But we'll see. Because with all of the interior offensive linemen that we have on this roster, we have like 3 or 4 guys that literally only play center. Like literally only. So we don't have a lot of room to just be stashing a bunch of extra offensive linemen in different positions as well. And then we drafted Braden Daniels, who they're trying to get as a potential star offensive tackle type of guy, a raw clay that they're going to try to mold and develop like that, a really raw guy. I think with his short arms, he may ultimately move to guard, but their vision with him, especially with his freakish athleticism, is for him to play tackle. And then you already have Cornelius Lucas, and then Charles Leno's just starting left tackle, Andrew Wiley's just starting right tackle. So where does Jones-Smith fit into this equation? So again, if he could be good enough to where he's a cheaper replacement for Cornelius Lucas, you can move on from his contract and save some cap space. That's a possibility there. That's his comp and his direct competition immediately. I mean, if they're similar players and one is cheaper, of course they're direct competition to each other. Literally only 1 inch of height, if that, and less than 10 pounds difference of weight, and basically the same arm length. So there that goes. We're bringing them in to compete directly with Cornelius Lucas, but you never know, man. Maybe Jones-Smith comes in here and is good enough to start at right tackle for us. And if he is, things get really interesting, because you could technically move Andrew Wiley to left guard right now, because we're still not sure about left guard. I love Chris Paul, and I loved what I saw from him in that final game of the season against the Cowboys, but that is his only NFL start. And to go into this 2023 NFL season with a rookie quarterback and a new offensive coordinator, and assuming that a 7th round pick that's only played 1 NFL game in his life is going to be a starting left guard, is irresponsible. I loved what I saw from him against the Cowboys, but the fact that it's just him and Sadiq Charles starting for that, competing for that starting left guard spot, I'm not too sure about that. I'm already a little nervous about this offensive line in general, and then we have so many different pieces changing. Nick Gates is your starting center. Hopefully Ricky Stromberg becomes your starting center. You drafted him in the 3rd round for a reason. So that's a new player right there that you didn't have starting for you last year. And then Samuel Cosme's officially moving from right tackle to right guard full time. That's new. Andrew Wiley, you picked up at right tackle, is new. Then left guard, who knows, new. And then Charles Leno is your only offensive lineman from last year that's going to play at the exact same spot that he played last year. So we have so many moving pieces, and the biggest part about offensive line, if anything, is chemistry, even more than talent a lot of the times. Guys need to be able to learn how to communicate with each other, communicate with the quarterback as far as ID and potential blitzers, changing protections at the line of scrimmage, all of that type of stuff. It's a lot of chemistry stuff as far as passing on stunts and things like that. And right now, we have some of the worst chemistry in the NFL because, again, Charles Leno is the only player that is, our left tackle position is the only thing that's the exact same from last year. Everything else is switched up. So even if you throw in Jones-Smith back there at right tackle and you move Andrew Wiley to left guard, I mean, ultimately, that's more talent on the field, but that's still not a lot of chemistry. So either way, I'm really nervous about this offensive line, and we just got to see how everything plays out. But again, remember, they cut Drew Himmelman, a high-ceiling guy, for another high-ceiling guy. This guy just comes with a higher floor, and I think there is a good chance that he makes the roster. I'm not guaranteeing it, because maybe Cornelius Lucas is like, nah, man, this is my job to keep, and even though I cost them more, I'm also the safer player. And when in doubt, they're going to go with the safer, more productive player, the guy that protects Sam Howell the best. But again, I really believe in Jaryd Jones-Smith. I can see a scenario where he makes this roster. Do I see him being our starting right tackle week 1 of the NFL season? Not necessarily, but I'm also saying that it's not impossible because the ceiling is there. And again, just looking at his tape from Pittsburgh to what he did for the Raiders, then looking at what he did for the XFL, he's gotten better and better, and you can just pretty much project him to only get better. Now, will he be good enough? I mean, will better be good enough for him to actually make the roster and start at right tackle. Not sure yet, but he's definitely gotten better and better every time we've gotten a good chance to see him, and I'm really excited about him, man. I really am. He's not just one of those random signings from the XFL or wherever, just mid-May, that has no chance of making the roster. This guy has some ceiling to him and also comes with enough of a floor to where we'll see, man. Make sure you stay tuned for that. But moving on, the Commanders are also interested in 2 other XFL players. John Yarborough from the XFL Roughnecks was invited to the Commanders camp a few days ago, last week. And he's really interesting because he had the 3rd highest pass blocking grade with an 83.8 among all guards in the XFL. He also played left guard, right guard, center, everything. And you know the Commanders love some positional flex. So that's a really interesting guy to keep track of. And then also linebacker Lakeem Williams from the XFL Battlehawks was invited to the Commanders rookie minicamp as well. And when I look up his stats, I haven't gotten a chance to really see any of his footage, but it says he played in 10 games and started in 3. And he comes from Syracuse, and in that 2023 XFL season for St. Louis, where he played in 10 games, started in 3, he had 14 solo tackles, 18 assisted tackles, 32 total tackles. But that's just one of those guys. Him and John Yarborough, I'm gonna have to go look at tape on those guys to give you a real evaluation, but I just wanted to put those names out there as other XFL players to watch out for. So I haven't had the chance to really do like a full dive into their tapes yet as well, but just some names out there that if you want to go look at them, they're guys that were at the camps for the Commanders last week, and they have a chance to potentially push for a roster spot right now. We still have 90 players on our roster, and maybe one of those guys steals one of those spots from somebody that's already currently on the roster. Again, don't have like a full deep dive of their weaknesses and strengths and things like that, but I just wanted to give y'all a heads up on these names, so if the Commanders end up signing them down the road, you'll already be aware of who they are, where they came from, and all of that type of stuff. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. As always, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, names you see scrolling on the screen right now. Let me know how you feel about this Jaryd Jones-Smith signing. Do you feel like he has an honest chance of making the roster? Do you even feel like he has a high enough ceiling to potentially even become our starting right tackle so we can move Andrew Wiley to left guard, where that's arguably our biggest hole on our team right now, at the very least on our offensive line? And also let me know how you feel about the other 2 names I just mentioned, who the Commanders are targeting from the XFL as well. Remember, we had recent success from the XFL with Taylor Heineke. Do you think either of those 3 guys that we talked about in this video could have similar success? Most notably Jaryd Jones-Smith at tackle. So of course, again, let me know how y'all feel about everything discussed in this video in the comment section. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.